Hey gang, it's Moses, and this is my YouTube channel back here at the home base at Mount Sinai. Lots of sand around here. Also a few tourists here and there. They all want to see Mount Sinai, want to climb Mount Sinai. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to like me on Facebook and subscribe to my channel. And also send in questions, because remember, if I read your question on one of my posts, then you get a free t-shirt just like this one here. And today we got a question from a guy in Iowa named Don. He says, hey Moses, just wondering if you've got any thoughts about leaders, all these wacko leaders today. You think you'd say something about leadership styles or maybe leadership and spirituality. So yeah, that sounds good. That's a good question. But first thing I need to say is I'm not much of a leader, you see. In fact, some people would say that I flunked leadership because I didn't reach my goal, leading the people of Israel to the promised land. Now, that's no little thing. I mean, it was a great story, great movie and everything. Amazing story. I mean, it's really God's story, though. The plagues, the Passover, the Red Sea crossing, all that stuff. Mount Sinai and the wilderness, 40 years, right up into the frontier of the promised land. And it's a journey of slavery to freedom. And that's what people know, that's what people remember, and that's cool. Now, but in terms of leadership styles, I'd say that probably for 40 years all I did was to get up in the morning and I'd look out, and if the cloud moved, we moved, and if the cloud didn't move, we didn't move, and I sat outside my tent all day and listening to people whine and complain about their neighbors stealing their manna. That was always a big hassle. So what I did was maybe the best way to talk about me and leading and following is to go to the last 3 verses of the last chapter of the last book of what you all call the books of Moses. The books of Moses: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. Okay, now you know the line about the history gets written by the winners. Well, in this case, the story of my death got written by a survivor. And this chapter 34, some people say, is written as an introduction to the book of Joshua. So maybe Joshua wrote it. I don't know. I'll let you figure that out. But this tells about my death. And it's kind of a eulogy, too. There's a story of what happened between me and God on Mount Pisgah, for example, and then the story about how I was buried, but they didn't say where. They don't say where because the location was kept secret, because they didn't want anybody to build a big shrine there and everything, and they didn't want anybody to steal my bones. And then there's 30 days of mourning. That's 30 days. Most other leaders get 7. I got 30 days of mourning. Now, here's where it gets interesting, is in verse 11 and 12. Okay, now here's Deuteronomy 34, 11 and 12. He was unequaled for all the signs and wonders that the Lord sent him to perform in the land of Egypt, against Pharaoh and all his servants and his entire land, and for all the mighty deeds and all the terrifying displays of power that Moses performed in the sight of all Israel. Now, if I had my way, that wouldn't be the last thing that's said about me. Why? Well, because it's all about perform signs and wonders, perform mighty deeds, terrifying displays of power. That makes it sound like, you know, I was like a magician or something. But leadership is not performing. Leadership is not performing. Maybe that's the first thing you might want to remember. No, see, I would rather have had verse 10 at the end be the last thing. Never since has there arisen a prophet in Israel like Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face. You see, I'd rather be remembered as a prophet than a performer, as someone who knew God face to face, rather than somebody who had a magic staff or something like that, you know. But that's not how I started. I didn't start out talking to God face to face. My journey, if you will, was coming to God and then figuring out how to do stuff for God. But eventually, I was simply able to enjoy being with God, So that's the journey, you see, that's behind the journey. It's sort of a journey of a leader. You see, I didn't think too much about God at the beginning, you know. In fact, I had what you might call identity issues or attachment issues. My sister Miriam, she told me about my history, and I thought, well, where do I belong? Do I belong with the Hebrews? Do I belong with the Egyptians? Or I wasn't sure where I came from, and for sure I didn't know where I was going. And that kind of made me mad, and I didn't realize how mad I really was until Pharaoh, until the day I saw that Egyptian beating up the Hebrew slave, and I killed the Egyptian, and then Pharaoh came after me, and I ran, and I kind of settled in the wilderness, and ended up by a well, and the well led to a burning bush and a smoky mountain, and water that came from the rock, and food that came down from the skies, and one thing after another, you know. So, but everybody, you know, has issues, and mine was anger. So that's what got me in trouble. That's what got me in trouble in Egypt, and that's what ended up that I couldn't go to the promised land. So the amazing thing was not all the miracles that I performed, okay, but that God saw me face to face, despite my anger, despite all our difficulties, and even though I saw God face to face, that's not to say I didn't argue with him, or I didn't complain to him, or even get mad at him. I did all those things. Being a prophet means that somebody who speaks for God, who stands in the gap between God, people, and him, and somebody who foretells as well as somebody who forthtells, you see. Because you see, they're with God. And God stuck with me. And I discovered that I could do nothing without him. And every leader, every follower, you know, they have to learn the same thing. They have to understand the same thing. So you could say that just as the journey of the people of Israel is a story of freedom from slavery to sin, you know, and that's kind of the message. It's also the story of my own soul's journey, you see. And it helps people that are trying to get to know God, but also trying to get to know themselves, and trying to understand who they are and their unique qualities and characteristics and abilities and disabilities they're created with. And in the process, you hear his call and follow. It started for me with noticing that bush. I mean, you couldn't really not notice it, but then being attentive to his voice, and then trusting. Not, you know, I didn't trust with perfect obedience all the time, but I learned how God calls then people to walk with him, and then to lead other people. And along the way, he met me in these crises that I had about direction and the overwhelming workload that I had, and having times of disappointment, and learning little things, learning simple things like limits and rhythms and work and rest. So later on, before I started the YouTube channel, I did another appearance, and that was on another mountain, and this was with Elijah and Jesus. And you know it as the Mount of Transfiguration, but we called it getting the band back together again. And one of the great lessons of that moment is about glory. Glory. See, the glory that I saw face to face, you know, in the old covenant. That was the old covenant. But now that glory was being fulfilled and being surpassed by a greater glory, this new covenant. And it was Jesus. See, it's Jesus. His coming, his sacrifice, his resurrection. That was the thing that brought it all to reality. So anyway, thanks for that question, Don from Iowa. You'll be getting your t-shirt in the mail soon. And thanks for watching. Remember, everybody, like us on Facebook, subscribe on iTunes, and tune in and everything else. And we'll see you next time, okay? Shalom out.